Joining us now as we approach the end of the year, it's time to get your finances in order for both the end of the 2021 calendar and fiscal year, as well as you prepare for 2022. And joining us now to provide some tips on how you can best approach that is Rick Bloom, a financial advisor with Bloom Advisors, back with us once again on the MegaCast. Rick, thank you for being with us.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's a privilege to be here again.
Appreciate having you with us. So, Rick, as we are in the thick of the holiday season, people are doing their holiday shopping. They're getting ready for a large family get-togethers like they had with Thanksgiving, like they'll have during the other holidays throughout the month of December and New Year, and the New Year as we head into January as well. That can be tough for people to stay on budget, however, because they're doing so much spending outside of the norm, particularly in the month of December and even late into November. What advice do you have for folks that are trying to keep their financial life in order during the holiday season, especially as we're getting toward year end?
You know, the first thing I always tell them is you got to have a game plan about how much you're going to spend during the holidays. And remember, you don't have to buy a gift for everyone you know. People have to be more prudent with their money. So I think before you even start the holiday shopping process, you should know who you're going to buy gifts for, and there should be a budget that you need to stay within. The problem that we have is we have so many people that charge their holiday gifts, and it takes a whole year to pay it off. So you now have people that are just paying off their 2020 holiday gifts, which you can't do. So I think the most important thing is to set a budget, stay within that budget. And remember, most people you're going to buy gifts for who love you, they don't want you going into financial ruin to give them a gift. So people should be more creative these days, but they have to make sure they watch that bottom line. My general view is you should never put anything on a charge card that you cannot afford to pay when that bill comes due, because the interest rate on charge cards is outrageous. I mean, think about this, Tyler. You put money in the bank, you're lucky to get 1%. You charge it on your charge card, you're paying at least 18.5%. So it never makes sense to loan money out at less than 1% and borrow it at 18.5%. If you cannot afford to pay that charge card bill when it comes due, don't buy the item.
We're joined by Rick Bloom. He is a financial advisor with Bloom Advisors, joining us on the MegaCast. You can also find his Money Matters column for Home Life newspapers on hometownlife.com. And so on top of the additional spending that's typical for many during the late area of November and through December and the holidays each year, now especially given the pandemic, given the last couple of years that we've been through, and just the nature of today's society, a lot more of that shopping is also being done online. What advice do you have for your clients and for the general public, and how they can keep their finances both in order with online shopping, but also safe as well from the cybersecurity standpoint?
Well, you hit the nail right on the head when you said safe. The most important thing when you're going online is to only go to reputable sites. I mean, it's not who has the cheapest product, but it's the most reputable site. And you need to make sure that you do your homework on that site before you provide them any information. And, you know, the same thing comes this time of year with charities. You know, Americans are the most charitable people on earth, and we give. And so what happens, the crooks know that too. And this time of year, we're all getting emails. It's either with kids that pull at our heartstrings or dogs, and people automatically sign up for it. You can't do that. You have to be smarter these days. My general rule is when I get an email, I never link from that email unless I'm 100% sure I know that site. I much rather type it into my browser. And especially when it comes to things like charities, you have to check the charity out before you send them your money. Places like give.org, charitynavigator.org provide a lot of independent information on charities that you need to check out before you give them your charge card. In the old days, Jesse James had to put a gun to you to rob you. Today, it's much easier than that, and they're coming from all over the world, so you cannot be too safe when it comes with your charge card and your sensitive information online. And the other thing is, this time of year, especially with charities, we're getting a lot of phone calls. Phone solicitations. My general rule, I never give to a phone solicitor, never. even if I think it's a good charity, I won't give through the phone solicitor. I'll, go on the website, do my homework, check it out, and give through there. And there's a reason for that. One, so many of these phone solicitations are just scams, and they're meant to get your information. But even ones that are from legitimate charities, the problem is upwards of half the money you give goes to the phone solicitor as opposed to the charitable organization. Most of us want to make sure when we give to a charity, we believe in that cause and we want that money going to accomplish that cause. We don't want it to go to salespeople. So you cannot be too safe when you go online. And my number one advice, it's not the cheapest, because you can always find something cheapest, and that's where people run into problems. They think, oh my God, this is selling for $200 everywhere. I can get it for $50. Well, there's a reason for that. And also, there's a lot of fraudulent goods on the market these days that you think you're getting an original product, but you're not. So you really have to keep your guard up, when you go online. And the way I tell people is only use reputable sites. If you've never heard of the site and, you can't get independent information from it, walk away from it.
Yeah, and on that front, too, with the phone callers, it's something that's similar to what we see, what the advice we see from the Better Business Bureau and other entities in regard to companies that may be calling, saying, hey, there's been a charge on your account with Amazon or with Target or with Walmart or with any of these different businesses. Their advice is to don't do anything over that phone call. Don't do anything with that email. Go to the company's website, log into your account, or call your local store individually and continue that process and see if that call was for real, and if that incident is true. Similar thing with the giving, with the charities. If someone's calling you through a phone solicitation, the safer way to go about that would be to tell the person on the phone, if you're interested in donating to that charity, to say, okay, I just want to make sure that I am going through all my checks and doing this as safe as possible. So I'm going to hang up and I'm going to call this charity back individually, but I will be making a donation. And anybody on the other side of that line that is not encouraging you to do that is probably not looking out for your best interests or the best interests of that charity. And all the more reason why you say, with regard to commissions, it may not be your best choice.
Right. And, let me just also say about that is, if you ever get an email from an entity like the IRS, ignore it.
Yeah.
Don't even respond to it. I mean, we've seen a lot in Oakland County. A lot of people have been taken by all sorts of frauds when it comes to the IRS. The IRS is not going to email you. They're not going to call you on the phone. They're going to send you a letter. So if you get a call, and it happens to a lot of seniors in our area, that they owe money and they have to pay it immediately, they're going to be arrested. Well, hang up. And even if it says IRS, Internal Revenue Service, on the caller ID, the crooks are smart these days, but we have to be smarter. So the same advice applies whether it's the IRS or the state of Michigan taxing authorities. So if you get an email, ignore it.
Yeah, and they're able to because so much of our phone systems are digital, especially our cell phones, and we have automatic caller ID on them that is based on the origination of the call and the device that's from. They're able to what's called spoof their caller ID and make it appear, like you said, like they're calling from Internal Revenue Service or IRS or some other agency, that then you see that on your caller ID and you think this is legitimate and don't, right. And then you let your guard down, and here they are. They have access to your right. information. They may either wipe it. And once they get that information, it's amazing what they can do. They can open charge cards in your name, and it causes all sorts of problems. And what people should also recognize, everyone thinks it's just the elderly that gets taken advantage on these scams. It's not. It's millennials. It's across the board. And it's even, especially in identity theft, one of the fastest growing areas is against newborns, is people stealing the identity of newborns. So you have to keep your cautious, and if something doesn't seem right, you need to check it out. Don't assume that it's no big deal, because it is. We're joined by Rick Bloom. He is a financial advisor with Bloom Advisors, joining us today on the MegaCast. And so in terms of precautions or protections? Are there any that you can put in place with your bank accounts, with your investment accounts, with your personal information like your social security number and your credit? Any sort of precautionary protections that you can put in place to help you avoid your information if it is breached from having issues?
Just like most of the brokerage houses these days, and the same thing with charge card companies, will send you notices whenever there's activity on your account. And I recommend people sign up for that. And I use an example with me. I have notice on my charge card that any activity. So I once, a few years ago, got a notice from my charge card that someone charged $1 on my charge card. Well, most people would ignore that, but I know that's a sign that someone had breached my charge, because I don't charge anything for $1. So I immediately contacted the company and put a hold on it, and got a whole new card and stuff like that. You and I today have to be proactive and take advantage of these notices. And I'd also say, like on your brokerage accounts, to sign up for two-factor identification. It's a little bit of a hassle, but it's something that we need to do. We tend to think that, it's not going to be me, I'm not the wealthiest or this or that. It happens to every one of us. We're all potential victims to identity theft. So, you have to take security seriously. Two-factor identification is important, but also putting notices on all those accounts, any activity that you're going to get a notice on. And if you didn't do it, you need to contact them immediately.
Yeah, and then there are other protections also that you can put on your social security number and information, and your credit information with the credit bureaus. Precautionary. Right. You don't necessarily need to have some sort of incident to prove to them that you need this protection. You can just do it, and then they're notifying you when there's any sort of an attempt, even, of an inquiry.
And I'll give you an example. I have all three of on the major credit bureaus. I have my account frozen on all three of them. So if I ever need to, I'm getting a new car, so they have to run my credit or something, I'll unfreeze it for that short period of time and then refreeze it. It's a hassle, but you know what? It's worth it, because if your identity is stolen, it gets to be a major, major hassle, and it is expensive to resolve it. And it just doesn't happen overnight. It can take years and years really to overcome that.
Yeah, it can, and so you want to be able to take that action right away, or precautionary, take that action so that if there is an incident, you know about it right away. Because oftentimes, like you said, there'll be these little tests that come through, whether it be a $1 charge on your charge card that kind of gives them a test of, is this the information I'm looking for? Does this work? Or an inquiry made on your credit that then goes through and ends up being an account that you get charges racked up on, and that can have a huge impact on your finances.
And I'd also tell people what I tell them to do all the time: you get a statement, review it for accuracy. And if there's a mistake, contact that company who issued the statement immediately. When you get, let's say, your 401k statement, you'll get it at the beginning of January. You should make sure that, all your deposits were accurately accounted for, and that if there are any withdrawals that you have, that they're on there. But if you didn't have any withdrawals and then they show up on there, there's a problem. Mistakes do happen. People think banks don't make mistakes and big financial companies don't make mistakes. They do. And you and I are last line of defense. So we have to be proactive. We get a statement, we should review it for accuracy.
We're joined by Rick Bloom of Bloom Advisors today on the MegaCast. And Rick, at this point in time, many people are changing jobs. We've had mass resignations, people that have been leaving jobs for other jobs. There are a lot of job openings as well. And as people are transitioning from one job to another, they may have a potential to leave their company through a buyout. What should people who are offered buyouts be taking into consideration before they either accept that buyout or continue the negotiation about potentially leaving their job?
Right. Well, I think that, first of all, everyone has to look at their own individual situation. Everyone likes to think, well, what is everyone else doing? Well, that's immaterial. You need to look at your own individual situation, particularly some of the buyouts that we've seen recently through the auto industry. You have to look at your situation saying, am I going to retire anyways? If you're going to retire anyways, then those buyouts sometimes are worthwhile. If you're not going to retire, if you plan to work for a few years, some of those buyouts aren't so good. So I think the key is to look at your own individual situation, And then to decide if I'm going to retire, do I have the income to retire, or am I going to have to get another job? Yes, jobs are plentiful, but we also have to realize that for seniors, or really people over 50, sometimes the job market is very difficult. I think you need to look at also what benefits are they providing you? Are they providing you health care for a period of time? It's just not the buyout number. As you mentioned earlier, it's about all the perks that are also go along with it. But I think individually, you have to look at it in your own individual situation, to coordinate with your spouse and things of that nature. I've seen so many buyout offers in my career. Some are good, some aren't so good. But the most important thing is look at your own individual situation.
We're joined by Rick Bloom of Bloom Advisors today on the MegaCast. And Rick, end of the year, beginning of the new year, it becomes time for people to also be considering their health insurance, especially if they've switched jobs or employment situations as well. Early December is when we see the deadline for Medicare open enrollment. You have any advice for people who are trying to navigate that open often space and that often confusing landscape of healthcare benefits?
It is confusing, particularly for Medicare D prescription drug plan. And what I always tell people is, on the Medicare website, there is a prescription drug finder. It is a very good tool to help you figure out what's best for you. And that's where I tell people to start. And also when it comes to prescription drug plan, a lot of people think husband and wife need to sign up for the same plan, and they don't. You need to look at your own situation individually. And don't assume that the plan you had last year is just as good as this year. Plans change. And also, let's face facts, our healthcare situation changes. And so you have to look at this anew. But I would tell people that Medicare.gov, the prescription drug finder, is a wonderful place to begin your search. They have a wealth of information. And for a lot of people, it is relatively easy because you're typing in your prescriptions, and they're then providing what plans are covered through those. It gets a little more difficult for someone that has multiple, many drugs. Then it gets a little more difficult.
We're joined by Rick Bloom of Bloom Advisors on the MegaCast. Rick, just another couple minutes before we'll say goodbye today. Any other advice as we head into the thick of the holiday seasons and approach the end of the year?
Well, I'll tell you one thing I think everyone should do is look at their own individual situation, decide whether they should do a Roth conversion. Roth conversions provide great opportunities. The benefit is Roth IRAs are not subject to income tax. So when you withdraw money from a Roth IRA, it's tax-free. In addition, Roth IRAs are not subject to minimum required distributions. So you can let money grow tax-free for as long as you choose. And if you pass away, that money goes to your beneficiaries income tax-free. So I think, and no matter what age you're at, you should look at doing a Roth conversion. And my general rules are, 1, you have to have the money to pay the tax without touching the money you're converting. 2, by converting the money, it won't throw you into a higher tax bracket. And 3, that you can generally leave it there at least 5 years. If you meet those 3 criteria, it makes sense to take advantage of a Roth conversion. And particularly someone that may find that in 2021 they're in a lower tax bracket because of job situation than they normally would, it gives them an opportunity. So I think it's a great opportunity to convert tax-deferred money into tax-free money. People should take advantage of Roth IRAs, Roth conversions.
Well, Rick, we appreciate your time. Thank you for your advice as we head into the end of the year and people work to get their finances in order heading into 2022.
Well, thank you so much, and a happy holiday season to all your listeners.